The survival of Ukraine as a free and independent nation hangs precariously in the balance. The country is locked in a desperate struggle against a relentless aggressor. Support from the United States has been a lifeline for Ukraine since the conflict began. However, recent changes in U.S. policy have raised serious questions about the future of this support. This uncertainty has placed a heavy burden on Europe. The continent now faces a critical question. Can it muster the will and the resources to support Ukraine independently? The stakes could not be higher. The outcome of the conflict in Ukraine will have profound implications, not just for Ukraine itself, but for the future of Europe and the international order. If Ukraine falls, it will be a victory for aggression and a defeat for democracy and the rule of law. It will also embolden other authoritarian regimes around the world. Europe cannot afford to stand idly by while Ukraine fights for its survival. The continent has a moral and strategic imperative to act. Morally, Europe cannot turn its back on a neighbor in need. Strategically, a Russian victory in Ukraine would pose a direct threat to European security. It would also undermine the rules-based international order that Europe has worked so hard to build. This is a defining moment for Europe. The continent must decide whether it is willing to step up and shoulder the responsibility of defending its own security and values. The world is watching. The United States has been the primary provider of military aid to Ukraine since the conflict began. This aid has been crucial in enabling Ukraine to resist Russian aggression. However, with the recent pause in U.S. military assistance, Europe is now faced with the daunting task of filling the void. Can it do so? On paper, Europe possesses significant military capabilities. The combined military spending of European NATO members dwarfs that of Russia. However, European militaries have been chronically underfunded for decades. As a result, they lack the readiness and the capabilities of their American counterparts. Bridging this gap will require a sustained and substantial increase in military spending by European nations. Furthermore, Europe's military capabilities are fragmented. European countries have different military doctrines, equipment, and levels of readiness. This lack of interoperability makes it difficult for European militaries to operate effectively together. Addressing this challenge will require greater cooperation and coordination among European militaries. Intelligence sharing is another area where Europe will need to step up its game. The United States has provided Ukraine with invaluable intelligence support, which has been critical in enabling Ukraine to anticipate and counter Russian moves. Europe has its own intelligence capabilities, but it has been reluctant to share sensitive information with Ukraine. This reluctance will have to change if Europe is to effectively support Ukraine in the absence of U.S. intelligence sharing. The economic front is just as critical as the military front in the struggle to support Ukraine. The war has devastated the Ukrainian economy. The country is heavily reliant on international aid to keep its government functioning and its people fed and sheltered. While the United States has been a major contributor to this aid effort, Europe has also played a significant role. The European Union has provided billions of euros in financial assistance to Ukraine. Individual European countries have also made substantial contributions. However, maintaining this level of support over the long term will be a major challenge for Europe. The continent is facing its own economic headwinds, including soaring inflation, an energy crisis, and the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Furthermore, there is a risk of donor fatigue setting in if the conflict drags on for years. The public in European countries may become less willing to support a costly foreign intervention as the economic costs mount and the conflict fades from the headlines. European leaders will need to make a strong case to their citizens that supporting Ukraine is not just a matter of charity, but a vital investment in European security and stability. Beyond direct financial assistance, Europe can also support Ukraine by providing trade preferences, investment opportunities, and technical expertise. Helping Ukraine rebuild its economy and integrate it more closely with the European economy will be essential for ensuring the country's long-term viability and resilience. One of the biggest challenges facing Europe in its effort to support Ukraine is the continent's own internal divisions. Europe is not a monolithic bloc. It is a collection of sovereign nations with diverse histories, cultures, and interests. These differences are often reflected in their foreign policy stances. When it comes to Ukraine, There is a general consensus among European countries that Russia's aggression is unacceptable and that Ukraine must be supported. However, there are significant differences in opinion on how far this support should go. Some countries, such as Poland and the Baltic states, which border Russia and have historically been wary of Russian expansionism, are among the most hawkish voices in Europe, advocating for maximum military support for Ukraine and tough sanctions on Russia. Other countries, such as Germany and France, which have traditionally favored dialogue and engagement with Russia, are more cautious. They are wary of escalating the conflict and risking a wider war with Russia. They are also concerned about the economic impact of sanctions on their own economies. These divisions within Europe have made it difficult to forge a united and coherent response to the crisis in Ukraine. While the European Union has managed to impose unprecedented sanctions on Russia, it has struggled to agree on more ambitious measures, such as an embargo on Russian oil and gas. This lack of unity has undermined Europe's credibility on the world stage and emboldened Russia. Overcoming these divisions and forging a common European position on Ukraine is essential if Europe is to effectively support Ukraine and deter further Russian aggression. This will require strong leadership from key European countries, as well as a willingness to compromise and put aside national interests for the sake of the collective good.